Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read adult fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will finish reading the last chapter of Naruto Alternative Universe Fic, from Archive of Our Own by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence, called Scars. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. Note, this fic is rated explicit. On with the show. Scars by MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence. The final chapter, Chapter 12. Tuesday, November 24th. It was a week later than Kakuzu was well enough to leave the hospital. Kakashi walked into the interview room far more at ease than he had been in a month.
Hotake,
Kakuzu said.
I knew I should have taken you out.
Kakashi smirked. In their past dealings, Kakuzu had made several veiled threats to his life. Probably. I will tie you to those murders. With you now in custody, I will search every property you've spent more than 10 minutes in, and I will find your trophies.
The Hyuga turned me over?
He didn't have to. You never changed your gun. 11 years and you're still using the same gun. You shot Shisui, Madara, and Obito Uchiha.
I could have inherited that weapon.
He actually said you were the one he hired back then, and hired you again to kill Itachi Uchiha. You're looking at death anyway.
You want me to cop to the serial murders?
You don't want the credit to go to someone else, do you? I want everyone to know you did it.
And got away with it. If it wasn't for that damn Hyuga, you would never have gotten me.
I'll concede to that.
Make sure that tape's long. It's a long story.
It's digital. You can talk all day. Make sure you cover the Uchiha killings along with the rest.
Oh, I will.
Itachi never thought he would step foot on the Hyuga's property again, or at least not as soon as he found himself standing in front of their door, his arm in a sling to keep him from tearing the stitches. He rang the bell and waited someone to stir inside. A young lady answered the door, and Itachi had to struggle to recall her name. Hanabi. She did appear surprised to see Itachi standing there, her pale eyes raking over his towering figure. "Neji's on the patio," she said, pulling the door wide a moment later. After Hiroshi's arrest, Neji decided to stay with his cousins to help them cope with what had happened and the fact that their father might have murdered their mother. There wasn't enough evidence to charge Hiroshi with her murder, or that of Neji's father, but someone had sent Neji a copy of Sasuke's unofficial report with the notes of his colleagues' further suspicions. "Thank you, Hanabi," Itachi said, offering her a small smile. It didn't escape that he had in effect ruined her life by confronting her father with his crimes. Yet he had heard that her father was less affectionate than Fukaku. She led him silently through the house and to the back patio. Neji sat staring off into the surrounding gardens, his eyes unfocused. "You have a visitor, Neji," Hanabi said. She turned and walked back into the house, leaving the two of them alone. Neji barely turned to acknowledge Itachi's presence, but his eyes flickered when Itachi sat across from him, making himself comfortable in the wicker chair. "I didn't expect to see you here," Neji said, breaking the silence. "I had a few things to discuss with you, mostly about my brother, but also about our companies." "It's my uncle's company that you're now steward of until Hinata can compose herself enough to run it." "I never wanted anything to do with the business." "And yet you find yourself assuming your uncle's role," Itachi remarked. Naruto told him that Neji was taking a leave of absence from the FBI. His partner wasn't going to need him anyway, as Sasuke was taking a forced vacation rather than a suspension for his willful disappearance. "Only until Hinata's ready," Neji answered. "She's more than capable of heading the family business." No doubt of her capabilities, but I did want to pose a question to you in your capacity as a steward." "And what question would that be?" "I want to reinitiate our company's merger. We don't have to talk in detail now. Discuss it with Hinata first, and then we can talk." Neji studied Itachi closely from the corner of his eye before offering the briefest of nods. "And your brother?" "Am I mistaken in believing that you have feelings for my little brother?" Neji snorted. "You're not mistaken." "Let me guess, since you were 16? Neji stalled, turning wide eyes on Itachi. "How did you know that?" "It seems to be a common theme with Sasuke."
You make him out to be a slut.
Itachi shook his head, silencing Neji. He's not a slut, but he's no saint either. He knew what he was doing was wrong, not only for himself, but for Naruto and Kakashi as well. His actions were selfish, but they were born through fear of losing his best friend. I don't say that term lightly, and I'm not trying to diminish your friendship with Sasuke, but Naruto is his best friend, and deep down he doesn't want to lose that friendship, though I'm sure he's prepared to let it go for Kakashi should Kakashi request it of him. Is that why you're here? To defend Naruto? You humiliated him.
He humiliated himself,
Neji snapped, launching from his chair, upturning it in the process and strutting away. It finally struck Itachi what part of Neji's problem was. He followed at a more leisurely pace. Neji was leaning over the railing of a small footbridge spanning a koi pond when Itachi caught up to him. You want to hate Naruto. To hate him for sleeping with Sasuke. For always being there for him. For having such a close friendship with him. But you can't. Neji didn't say a word. You are so in love with Sasuke that you want to place your blame on the only person you can when it's Sasuke who probably deserves it. Shouldn't I?
It was always Naruto with Sasuke.
And now it's Kakashi. He truly loves Kakashi.
I don't care about that,
Neji snapped, tears forming in his eyes.
Even I can see that they are good for each other.
Kakashi is in a completely different league from Naruto and I. But why did Sasuke always go to Naruto over me? We had more in common. Perfect grades, played the same sports, both members of wealthy families. And what does Naruto have?
He had poor grades. He could barely pass phys ed.
But his family is just as wealthy as yours and mine. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they were more so now. Naruto is the heir to the Namikaze Foundation.
Your posturing is not endearing me to Naruto's character. If that is all, please see yourself out.
Neji walked away, crossing the remaining span of the bridge. You've completely missed the best part of Naruto, Neji, Itachi called after him.
And what is that?
Neji demanded, turning abruptly to stare at Itachi. His good heart, Itachi replied. Neji snorted.
Don't tell me you're sleeping with him too. You have to be...
No, Itachi smirked.
Don't you have a boyfriend? What is it with you, Uchiha? Cheating bastards.
Yes, but unlike Kakashi, my boyfriend is open to something like polyamory. He's understanding of my wants and is willing to do almost anything to make me happy. And he likes Naruto too. Even Kakashi bears Naruto no ill will. It's just you. I think you're actually lucky Sasuke never took an interest in you.
Huh? Neji was offended.
Sasuke is terribly scarred. He mentioned that he thought he'd never be able to love anyone until he met Kakashi. Those scars became kind of an armor. They protected him by not to allow him to feel anything anymore. He hurt Naruto because he was never able to reciprocate Naruto's feelings. If you had been in a relationship with him, you would have been as hurt and unsatisfied as Naruto. I can tell Kakashi has scars of his own. He and Sasuke seem to be rubbing against each other and softening them. I'm not sure what Kakashi's been through, but it gives me a deeper understanding of Sasuke. I'm so very glad. He was no doubt angry with Sasuke for his infidelity, but he didn't hold it against him. I think he finally realizes he does have people around him who will never abandon him. Itachi was sad to say he couldn't honestly count himself in that group since he had abandoned Sasuke once. Frankly, you deserve better, my brother. Perhaps if our family hadn't died, Sasuke would be emotionally available, but as it is, only Kakashi's been able to get under that armor.
I would have liked to try.
Neji shut his eyes, as much to banish tears as indulging in a momentary fantasy of having an intimate moment with Sasuke. Not sex. Moment after sex. At least he could only imagine. A tired smile, soft eyes, ruffled hair and bruised lips. A moment of afterglow. Just a moment of intimacy. You'll find someone actually worthy of you.
You think so little of your brother?
Yes and no. He might not ever be able to forget your feelings for Sasuke. But I hope you move on. I also urge you to apologize to Naruto. You don't have to like him, but you should apologize for taking out all your anger and resentment on him, not Sasuke.
I'll consider it. Anything else?
Yes. Thank you for saving our lives. Thank you for saving my brother. You're welcome. I won't let anyone die if I can prevent it. He thought she turned to leave. How's your wound? Sore, but healing. Thank you. Thank you for saving Sasuke. He thought she just nodded to him and left the estate. Naruto stood before Tsunade nervously, waiting in the harsh silence of her office. The clock hanging behind her desk ticked up obnoxiously loudly. Are you sure this is what you want, Naruto? Tsunade asked, lifting her head to look him straight in the eye.
I'm sure. I was never an outstanding agent to begin with.
Tsunade sat back in her chair, laying his resignation letter on her desk. It's denied.
Huh?
Naruto asked. I say it's denied.
But why?
Because you're an outstanding agent.
I'm not as good as Sasuke,
Naruto interrupted. In your own right, Tsunade continued, glaring at being interrupted. Sasuke is abnormally talented. You're on par with many of the top agents. You're not at Kakashi's level, but you are at Neji's.
I never wanted to go into law enforcement. I only followed Sasuke to keep him out of trouble. I failed, but now that his main objective has been achieved, I think I want to find out what I should have been. I never thought about it.
Naruto trailed off into a sigh. Tsunade studied Naruto closely, looking at his resignation once more, and tore the sheet in half. Naruto stared on, dumbfounded. I have a proposition for you, then. What would you say about me drastically cutting your hours here?
I don't see the point.
Well, you can't work a full schedule and go to school at the same time.
Why would I be going to school?
Naruto asked, perking up at the idea. Our local office is looking into expanding our in-house forensic lab. I know firsthand that you attended a forensic seminar last year and held a lengthy conversation with the lead forensic investigator from Suna.
It was just a seminar.
You stood out among the group attending. You made an impression. I want you to complete your schooling and lead our field office in forensic dominance.
And what's wrong with the CSI checks we have now?
Lazy, half-trained, complacent, and barely capable of running a DNA sequence. I'm tired of having to send out samples and waiting a month to get them back. I want our office to be the lab that receives samples instead. I want dominance.
I won't have my schooling done in a few months. It would take at least a year before I qualified.
I understand that. That's why the same people who will be teaching you will be running the department and getting it started. Naruto sighed and sat down, his mind racing with possibilities. And I want to give Sasuke and Kakashi space, Tsunade said. This is an excellent way to do that. Naruto nodded, lifting his head to stare Tsunade in the eye.
When do I start?
Tsunade broke out into a rare smile. Spring classes begin in January. You've already been enrolled.
You thought I would say yes?
I knew you would say yes. Naruto stood up and excused himself, but when he reached the door he turned and said,
Thank you.
The elevator ride to the lobby was longer than usual, stopping at every floor. Kakashi had stepped on board one floor down from Tsunade's office, not realizing Naruto was hiding in the corner until he was shuffled to the back. This was awkward. Naruto pursed his lips, subtly beckoned the elevator gods to quicken their descent. 3 floors before they reached the lobby, the last rider departed and the doors closed behind his back, leaving Kakashi and Naruto alone. As the elevator renewed its descent, Kakashi hit the emergency stop button. Naruto braced himself against the railing as the elevator jerked to a sudden stop as it had just started to descend. He jerked his head in Kakashi's direction. We need to talk, Kakashi said. Naruto nodded a bit too enthusiastically and swallowed thickly, trying to calm his nerves. He wasn't afraid of what Kakashi would do, but what the elevator might do. He still clung to the fear of dying in an elevator after he was trapped for 4 hours in one on a school field trip when he was 8. Sasuke still teased him about it every time they rode an elevator together. Sasuke had amused himself during that incident by watching Naruto slowly freak out, completely unperturbed by the fact they were stuck in a little metal box hanging over 100 feet in the air. You don't have to look so nervous, Kakashi said.
Can we do this somewhere other than the elevator?
Naruto squeaked nervously, clutching the railing tighter. I want privacy for this conversation. I think we've all been embarrassed enough, don't you think? Naruto blushed at the memory still too fresh in his mind. He wouldn't be living that one down for years to come. But he hadn't realized how embarrassed Kakashi must have been, since Kakashi remained pretty composed and only got angry when Nechi took things too far.
I'm sorry, Naruto mumbled. I didn't know he was seeing you, or I'm sorry.
I've asked Sasuke to marry me. Naruto inhaled sharply. Tears stung at the corner of his eyes, and he blinked rapidly to get rid of them.
Congratulations,
Naruto whispered. I'm not telling you this to be cruel, but to get you to move on. I love him. Naruto laughed, but it was watery and tinged with sadness.
You don't have to worry about me interfering. I had no intention of bothering you two or meddling in your relationship.
A pregnant pause filled the rectangular metal box, Naruto blinking back tears and the pain he felt in his heart. Kakashi quietly studied Naruto.
Are we done?
Naruto asked, his nervousness increasing with every second they were suspended over the abyss. The fact he was losing any last remaining hope of a relationship with Sasuke wasn't helping his stomach any either. You're a good man, Naruto, but I'm still angry that you lied to everyone about Sasuke, Kakashi said, talking over Naruto's mumbled words.
I know,
Naruto said. And you feel no remorse? Naruto shook his head. You could have endangered Sasuke's life with your silence.
That's just it, isn't it?
Naruto whispered.
When Itachi first called, he threatened Sasuke.
And you believed him. Naruto frowned, his eyes narrowing into a glare.
Absolutely. What reason would I have to think Itachi would lie? He was accused of murdering most of his family. I doubted him when he said he'd not harm Sasuke if I helped, but I didn't think I had a choice. I promise you, though, if I knew about the two of you, I would have told you.
Kakashi nodded in agreement. In the same position, he might have done exactly what Naruto had done. He'd have done anything for Sasuke. Kakashi could respect that. Naruto sighed in the silence that followed, his mind settling on Kakashi's proposal. Sasuke was now completely out of his reach, but on a deeper reflection, it didn't hurt as much as it should. Maybe Sakura was right, and he wasn't attached to Sasuke as much as he thought. He felt confident that he could finally let Sasuke go, but there was one thing he'd had to let Kakashi know about first.
Do you know that Sasuke lied?
Naruto asked. I think we're all aware of his particular skill at lying, Kakashi said, not happy about Sasuke's duplicity.
No, not about... I mean before that.
Kakashi shook his head, not comprehending.
There was a reason I followed Sasuke into the FBI, and it wasn't young love. I promised him I would be by his side when he found Itachi. Sasuke wanted to execute Itachi himself. He never had any intention of arresting him.
Kakashi scoffed, not quite believing Naruto's words. He wouldn't have passed the psyche eval to become an FBI agent.
You just acknowledged his skill at lying. Sasuke lied through his teeth and gloated about it afterwards. He told the psychologist that he wanted Itachi to endure the humiliation of a trial, all the while planning how he would kill him. He frightened me when he talked about it.
That's not the Sasuke I know, Kakashi said.
You're right, but that's the Sasuke I know. He really wanted to kill Itachi, and I promised myself that I wouldn't let him do it. Something like that. You don't come back from that. And he would have lived with the guilt for the rest of his life, or worse. That's not a fate I wanted for my best friend.
Kakashi frowned, shaking his head in mild confusion. Why are you telling me this? I thought you weren't going to interfere.
I'm not trying to interfere. I'm trying to educate. Sasuke has issues, and if you're not up to the task of dealing with them...
Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Kakashi grunted and pressed a button to get the elevator moving, ending the discussion. But Naruto got the last word in.
I'm trying to say, take care of him.
Before he ran from the elevator and then the building, gulping down lungfuls of air and trying to calm his shaking as he made his way through the courtyard. He hated elevators. A small ding emanated from Naruto's pocket and he reached for his phone. It happened to be a text from Itachi, which instantly lightened his mood. Meet me at 524 North Riverside Avenue.
I'll be there in 15.
Naruto shoved his phone back in his pocket and quickly located his car. Naruto pulled up outside a lovely little cottage facing the river. He exited his car and gaped, enthralled by the scenery. He couldn't stop the smile that adorned his face. It was such a beautiful and pricey view, and he would know. His parents' summer cottage was just a few miles up the road, but it had been years since he last stepped foot inside it. That was their special place. Naruto saw the curtain sway in the cottage windows and turned towards the door. He took a deep breath and turned the knob, without knocking. Itachi was seated in an armchair in the living room, having turned it to face the door, his face impassive. His arm was out of its sling, but it wasn't fully healed yet.
Are you enjoying your newfound innocence?
Naruto asked, closing the door behind him. Itachi smiled. I was wondering if you would show up or not.
Oh, why wouldn't I?
Because you have no reason to talk to me anymore now that Sasuke is home safely. Naruto frowned at Sasuke's name and bit the side of his cheek.
Yes, well, you're better company than Sasuke right now.
You're avoiding him, Itachi remarked. I don't blame you.
If you want to call it that,
Naruto said.
I don't want to fall back into your old way.
He's propositioned you? Naruto released a humorless chuckle.
No, and I'm not willing to give him that chance. Besides, he has a lot of making up to do with Kakashi. Do you know that they're engaged?
You don't sound happy about that. Naruto sighed and shrugged his shoulders sadly.
Of course he knew. Why wouldn't you? You're his brother after all. I'm happy for them, really. It just hurts knowing I wasn't as important to Sasuke as he was to me.
Itachi stood up and took a step towards Naruto, backing him up against the wall. I don't think that's true. I think you're the one he trusts the most.
And how long before Kakashi takes that honor too?
Just because Sasuke loves Kakashi doesn't mean he trusts him the most.
Ah,
Naruto interrupted.
But isn't that what you're supposed to have with the one you love?
Itachi laid his hand against Naruto's cheek. Naruto's hand came to rest over Itachi's, but he didn't pull away. You have a point there, but I doubt he'd cut you out of his life. There's something between you if he didn't want to give you up so easily. Naruto snorted.
That should sound comforting, but it just makes me angrier with the deme.
He has every right to feel the brunt of your anger. He was very selfish in what he did. But I can see why he did it, Itachi whispered, leaning in close to Naruto's lips.
Oh,
Naruto questioned, his eyes drawn to Itachi's lips. His own tongue slipped out and licked his lips in anticipation. Itachi smiled and closed the distance between them, pressing against Naruto, finally feeling the lean, rock-hard body against his own. Naruto sighed and leaned in closer, his tongue snaking out to tangle with Itachi's. You're a brave one, Itachi laughed. Naruto sighed, his eyes fluttering open. A second later, his face flushed red. I'm going to have so much fun with you.
What does that mean?
Exactly, Itachi said, nuzzling Naruto's neck and kissing just below his ear. Naruto was confused, but he didn't resist the hand that pulled him towards the bedroom. Itachi's bedroom. He didn't resist when he was swung around and landed on the bed with a heavy thump. His breath hitched as Itachi crawled on top of him and reclaimed his lips with passion. It wasn't harsh like he was anticipating. Instead, it was softer and warmer, but no less passionate. Naruto groaned and thrust his tongue into Itachi's mouth, exploring as much as he could before Itachi's tongue pushed back. Itachi smiled and broke away, panting heavily. He'd become used to holding his left arm against his chest, so he braced himself with his right and brought his other hand up to Naruto's cheek, running the back of his fingers against the faint whisker-like marks he had there, before running them along his neck and down his chest over a pert nipple. Naruto shivered. Itachi hooked his finger over the first button and pulled it through the hole. He followed with the second and third buttons until the shirt was hanging loose on Naruto's frame. Itachi pouted at the undershirt and tugged at the bottom feebly with his weakened arm, raising it to reveal the tantalizing caramel skin beneath. His dark eyes flickered over Naruto's face, delighting in his flushed expression. He bent down and glided his tongue up Naruto's chest and to his pebbled nipple. He licked around the knob before gripping it between his teeth and tugging gently, watching Naruto's back arch in pleasure, heard the sharp gasp. Sensitive there? Itachi asked. Naruto shook his head in denial, not wanting to admit how sensitive he really was or how much he loved it when his nipples were played with. Itachi brought his hand free up to fondle the other nipple, rolling it and pinching it between his fingers as he sucked and nipped at the other. Naruto whimpered, gasping for breath. His head was tilted to the side in pleasure, but he turned to look at Itachi looming over him, teasing him. He was unbelievably hard and couldn't stop fidgeting, seeking friction in his heated groin. "Want to admit it now?" Itachi whispered. He chuckled, noticing the fidgeting and the bulge in Naruto's slacks. He palmed the erection, rubbing through the black fabric. Naruto groaned and clutched the bedsheets tightly in his fists, his pelvis thrusting into Itachi's warm hand.
"Please,"
Naruto begged. Itachi trailed a fingernail over the bulge, tapping the tag of the zipper before pulling it slowly downward. Naruto threw his head back on the bed as Itachi's fingers tiptoed through his open fly, jiggling his heated member with the barest of touches. This won't do," Itachi said, and tugged at the button still holding the pants in place. He snapped it open and tucked Naruto's pants and boxers down around his ankles. "Much better," he said, eyeing Naruto's freed cock hungrily. Without wasting another second, Itachi engulfed the entire length in his mouth, sucking from base to tip as he ran tongue along the pulsing vein. He sucked around the tip of Naruto's cock, jamming his tongue into the slit, pleased with Naruto's resulting grunt while his fingers teased his sack. He gripped Naruto's cock firmly, squeezing and twisting as he traveled the length in his hand.
"Damn!"
Naruto said, ending with a groan. "You like that?" Naruto could barely give a nod of his head.
Aw, damn, Itachi, you started without me!
Naruto froze on the bed, his heart pounding frantically, but now for a completely different reason. He felt his body heat up with embarrassment, his limbs going numb. He felt like an ice block formed in his chest that slowly settled in his stomach. He felt nauseous. Itachi sat back on his haunches and half turned to the door. "If you weren't late, I wouldn't need to start without you," he growled.
"If you wouldn't be Mr. Impatient all the time," Deidara started.
"This is so like you."
What's going on?"
Naruto said.
"What does it look like?" Deidara said. "My boyfriend's an impatient bastard. He's so selfish."
Boyfriend? Naruto took a shuddering breath and pushed at Itachi's chest.
"Let me up," he demanded.
"Naruto," Itachi started.
"No, I don't want to hear it."
Naruto felt the telltale pinpricks at the corner of his eyes, but he was determined not to cry. He'd done enough of that already.
"I can't believe... How could I... Damn cheating Uchiha bastards!"
he exclaimed, gathering up his clothes and putting himself back in his pants. He pushed past Deidara, who grabbed his elbow and swung him into the wall with a thud.
"What?"
Naruto was cut off when Deidara kissed him more forcefully than Itachi had. Deidara forced his knee between Naruto's legs and rubbed against the semi-hard erection, eliciting a breathy moan. Naruto shook off Deidara's lips.
What are you doing?"
Naruto said, winded and stuttering.
"I'm trying to seduce you, idiot,"
Deidara said, nipping at Naruto's neck.
"Why?"
Naruto breathed, squirming under Deidara's ministrations. Deidara laughed. Itachi joined in from behind him. Naruto's gaze slid from Deidara to Itachi, who sat on the end of his bed, rubbing himself through his pants, his bulge obvious even under the black cloth. Naruto's breath hitched at the sight.
"Do you like that, Naruto?"
Deidara purred, nuzzling the space between Naruto's ear with his nose.
"Do you like Itachi stroking himself while he watches us? Does it turn you on?"
Naruto hummed, biting his lip. His cock twitched at the thought. It twitched again when Deidara bit at his chin.
"I'll take that as a yes,"
Deidara said. He slowly backed away from Naruto, edging towards the bed.
"Want to join us?"
he asked as he sat down in front of Itachi. Itachi pulled Deidara further back so he was right in front of him and leaned his head on Deidara's shoulder. Naruto took a shuddering breath, his eyes following Itachi's hand as it worked its way under Deidara's shirt and over his stomach and chest. "What do you say, Naruto?" Itachi said, peeking around Deidara's body. Naruto didn't have to be asked a third time. His steps were hesitant, but he moved forward. Deidara grabbed him by his open shirt, bringing him in for another kiss, Itachi's hands gripping his hips and kneading the supple skin.
"This needs to go,"
Deidara growled, dragging Naruto out of his shirts.
"Much better,"
he said, attacking Naruto's chest and nipples, nipping at the sensitive knobs, tasting Itachi's saliva already on his skin. Itachi hummed and stood up. He came around and molded himself to Naruto's back, and attaching himself to the bronzed neck, biting hard. Naruto hissed, thrusting his pelvis towards Deidara. Deidara grabbed those thrusting hips, lowered himself to his knees in the small space between Naruto's body and the bed, and engulfing Naruto's cock greedily, sucking and biting at the swollen flesh. Naruto groaned, his head falling back on Itachi's shoulder.
Damn,
he said. Itachi smirked, his hands traveling over Naruto's hips, brushing Deidara's fingers as he went. Deidara caught his eyes. His cock twitched at the sight of his lover swallowing Naruto.
Ah,
Naruto grunted.
stop!
Deidara removed his mouth and grinned, gripping Naruto's cock and rubbing his thumb over the tip. Are you that close? His tongue flicked out and running along the side. Naruto whimpered. Don't stop, Deidara. I want to see, Itachi said, biting Naruto's shoulder. Naruto shuddered beneath him, reduced to biting his lip as Deidara engulfed him again. He was more vigorous than before, sucking at Naruto's tip as he pumped and squeezed his cock. Naruto felt the build-up of impending orgasm, his body tensing as he released into Deidara's mouth. He breathed shallowly, leaning heavily against Itachi. Deidara pulled back, releasing the cock with a soft pop, stood and leaned over Naruto, kissing Itachi. Like that? Deidara asked. Itachi licked his lips, humming, the taste of Naruto lingering on his tongue. You know I do, he said. What do you want, Itachi? Deidara asked. I want to watch you and Naruto for a bit. Deidara pulled back a bit, dragging Naruto with him. Itachi moved to a chair in the corner of the room, his eyes on the two blondes. Day, he said. Yes, Tachi? His ass is mine. Don't touch it. Ah, Tachi! Deidara whined, but Itachi shook his head. Deidara grumbled, causing Naruto to laugh. Deidara glared at him, his hands wrapping around Naruto's neck and dragging him in for a kiss. Naruto hummed again, ran his hands over Deidara's shirt, tugging at the hem and lifting it over his head. It landed in a far corner. Itachi couldn't blink if he wanted to, too enraptured by the two blondes. One was pale with very lean muscle, the other tan with much more bulk. He slipped off his pants and rubbed his erection. He had been fantasizing about this for days, and Deidara kept talking about it, whispering in his ear how he'd do anything to please him, especially if that something was sex with the pretty little Naruto. Naruto looked over, not quite believing what was happening. Seeing Itachi's eyes dart over their bodies and rubbing himself, Naruto felt the same desire to please Itachi that Deidara had. And frankly, Deidara was very attractive as well. He gave in completely to the situation, even if this was a kinky one-time encounter. Whatever, it drove Sasuke completely from his mind. Naruto let his hands roam over Deidara's arms, feeling the strong muscles ripple beneath his fingertips, up over his shoulders and down, his fingers making quick work of the button to his jeans. Deidara stepped out of his jeans and sat on the end of the bed, pulling Naruto towards him and forcing Naruto's head to his groin. Naruto flicked down his tongue, tasting the clear bead of pre-cum leaking from Deidara's swollen cock. Naruto engulfed the head, sucking on the tip as he squeezed the base of Deidara's cock. Taking the length inch by inch into his hot, moist mouth, Naruto hummed around the length, bobbing his head. Fuck! Deidara groaned. He eyed Itachi, chuckling lightly. It's not bad, Tachi. Still needs a bit of practice, though. Naruto growled around the cock in his mouth, glaring up at Deidara. Don't give me that look, Deidara said. His breathing was harsher, his thighs shaking with pleasure. Can you deep throat? Naruto pulled back, the cock bobbing free of his mouth. No, Naruto admitted, still glaring. Pity, Deidara said. Something to look forward to, Itachi said, smirking. Naruto felt heat pooling in the pit of his stomach. Itachi want to do this again? He eyed Itachi from the corner of his eye. The older Uchiha sat in a chair, his eyes shining with lust as he stroked himself. It was strangely hot that Itachi still had his shirt on, otherwise naked and hard. Naruto groaned and reattached himself to Deidara, sucking from base to tip. Itachi stood, keeping his left arm curled against his chest, and rifled through his nightstand drawer, withdrawing a full bottle of lube. He knelt behind Naruto, grabbing his tanned rump in his hands, feeling the smooth and blemish-free skin beneath his palms. He had reached the limit of his control. Much more, and he'd just raped Naruto raw. Itachi popped the cap and squirted a liberal amount into his hand, coating his fingers. He spread Naruto's cheeks, his finger resting against the twitching hole. He pushed into the knuckle, Naruto gasping sharply around Deidara's cock. He slid a second finger in, stretching Naruto further before adding a third finger. Naruto hissed, feeling the familiar sting of being prepped. It was never his favorite part, but he did love the end result. His cock twitched in anticipation, body shivering at the thought of Itachi inside him, pounding his ass. Itachi poured more lube into his palm, making a show of coating his own cock as he stared at Deidara. Deidara groaned, feeling his release approaching. Just as he was about to come, he pushed Naruto back, releasing onto his face. Itachi growled from behind Naruto. "What?" Deidara demanded. "You told me I couldn't touch his ass. So you decided to mark him instead?" Deidara smirked, quite proud of himself. Itachi stood and hauled Naruto to his feet and onto the bed. He knelt behind Naruto, lining his cock up to Naruto's hole, slowly nudging in until he was seated to the hilt. Deidara chuckled, Itachi's eyes snapping to him instantly. "Clean him up," Itachi ordered, pulling back and thrusting into Naruto. Naruto gasped, panting as Itachi set a slow pace, rolling his hips with every inward thrust. Deidara crawled across the bed, kneeling in front of Naruto and grabbing his chin to steady himself. He leaned in, kissing Naruto softly before licking at the lines of warm cum on his face. Naruto's breath hitched. The sensation of Deidara's warm, moist tongue against his soiled cheeks turned him on. He thrust back to meet Itachi, keening loudly with pleasure. Itachi grunted, increasing his pace, droning in the sounds Naruto was making. He should have known the hyperactive blonde wouldn't be a quiet person in bed. It went against his nature. He sought out Deidara's gaze, his eyes hazy with lust. He nearly came at the sight of Deidara licking his cum off Naruto's face. But he wasn't ready. He wanted it to last just a bit longer. Itachi snaked his hand around Naruto's hip, gripping his leaking cock and squeezing, pumping the engorged organ. Naruto grunted loudly, keening as he came in Itachi's hand, his body clenching around Itachi's cock. Itachi's body slammed into Naruto, his thrust frenzied as he felt his own climax approaching. With one last thrust, he released inside Naruto. Naruto's shaky knees couldn't hold him anymore and he collapsed on the bed, Itachi falling behind him, Deidara nuzzling him from the front. Naruto laid between, slow to catch his breath, but deliriously happy. Thoughts of disgust were further from his mind as he sighed and closed his eyes. He couldn't believe that he had just had sex with 2 men at the same time and thoroughly loved it. He hoped he could do it again, just as soon as his backside ceased throbbing. "You are too quiet, Naruto," Itachi purred. "Where are those delicious sounds I was hearing just minutes ago?" Naruto shivered. "You'll wear me out," he said, sighing. "Is that all it takes?" Deidara laughed. "Maybe," Naruto said, peeking an eye open. "Maybe we should wear you out more often?" "Is that an offer?" "Do you want it to be?" There was an amusement in Itachi's voice, but Naruto recognized a hint of hope too. He turned his head to see Itachi's face. "Is that what you'd like?" "I'd like that very much," Itachi said, rubbing his thumb over Naruto's cheek. "Then I think today could be repeated." Itachi swelled with happiness. He dared not to look at Deidara, who was no doubt sporting an "I told you so" look. He preferred to stare at Naruto for now, who was half asleep from being thoroughly fucked. Naruto's phone rang somewhere in the room, disturbing all 3 of them as the Lollipop Guild played. "What the hell is that?" Deidara demanded, lunging from the bed in search of the screeching phone. He located Naruto's pants and grabbed the phone. "The damn thing doesn't stop!" "It's Konohamaru. Just ignore it. He'll give up soon," Naruto mumbled. "Come back to bed. I'm cold." "So demanding so soon." But Deidara complied, silencing the phone and crawling back into bed and snuggling close to Naruto. "Is there a password on this phone? Hey!" Deidara said as Itachi took the phone from him. The phone shook in Itachi's hand, this time playing a different song, Pretty in Pink. "And that would be Sakura calling." "Red button her until she takes the hint, please," Naruto said. Itachi complied until Sakura called for a 5th time. "Hello?" he answered, a little cross at being disturbed.
You should have just ignored her,
Naruto said.
Who's this? Is Naruto there?
Sakura demanded. Naruto grimaced, her voice carrying through the quiet room. Sorry, he's not able to come to the phone right now. I'll have him call you back later. Maybe. Itachi ended the call. What's going on? He was cut off as Naruto's phone rang again. Another song playing. Something classical. Naruto reached for the phone this time, but Itachi held it away. Naruto climbed over his chest in pursuit and almost reached the phone when Itachi rolled them, Naruto landing on his back with Itachi hovering over him.
It's my mom and she won't stop until I call her back.
To prove Naruto's point, the phone rang again. What's going on? Why is everyone calling you suddenly?
I'll tell you shortly, but I need to talk to my mom before she gets my dad involved.
Itachi released the phone, but kept Naruto pinned beneath him.
Hello?
Naruto said.
Can we talk about it later? I'm fine. It's not as bad as you think. Well, you haven't heard the whole story. No, I was not... Look, I'll call you back, okay? Love you. Bye.
Naruto ended the call and silenced his phone, tossing it to the side where it vibrated repeatedly. It was probably his dad calling. He focused on Itachi, still on top of him. What's going on, Naruto?
Nothing, really.
Naruto started. Your co-workers start calling you and then your parents. I don't think it's nothing.
They're just worried is all. They don't have the full story. They probably heard from Sakura.
Naruto, Itachi said. Were you fired?
What? No.
Did you resign?
No.
Naruto said. He avoided Itachi's gaze, but his neck flushed red, testament to his lie. Why would you resign? Deidara asked. Because of Sasuke, Itachi said.
It's not just because of Sasuke, Naruto said. It's many things. I never wanted to go into law enforcement. I only did it to keep Sasuke from
Naruto stopped short. To stop Sasuke from killing me, Itachi finished. You didn't think I'd know that Sasuke wanted me dead?
He's a great liar.
I know how well he lies. Unfortunately, it's because he's normally so emotionless. So he resigned. Naruto shook his head.
Tsunade denied it. Instead, she wants me to go back to school for forensic science and build up our in-house lab. It sounds like she wants me to run the whole thing, but I'll just probably end up a lab tech. At least it's something I enjoy.
Itachi's eyes widened slightly. DNA? He whispered. Naruto nodded his head.
Yeah.
Do you know how to run DNA?
Yeah, I do.
Can you...
Sasuke's your brother,
Naruto said. He is? Naruto nodded his head again.
Yeah, he asked me that night to check.
And you didn't tell me. Itachi sounded hurt.
I thought Sasuke would.
He didn't, Itachi said. He looked relieved to Naruto.
Maybe he was embarrassed that he believed Hiyoshi's words. I could tell it really bothered him. More than anyone else could see.
It wouldn't have changed anything. We still would have been brothers, Itachi said. He would be no less precious to me.
It would have changed something in Sasuke,
Naruto said, his gaze drifting downward. Are you sure you're not giving him enough credit? Deidara said. Naruto shook his head.
I know Sasuke. Lying aside, I know him very well. It was really bothering him that Hiyoshi said he was Izuna's son and not Fukaku's. I think he was beginning to believe it, deep down. The dad was torturing him.
I bet he was relieved to know he was his father's son.
Very much,
Naruto said, taking a deep breath and releasing it. He smiled. Itachi felt his stomach lurch, his mind racing with the thoughts too rapid to catch all at once. But one thought struck loud and clear. You're lying, Itachi said. His voice was soft and barely above a whisper, but it carried through the room. Naruto turned to look at Itachi, eyes widening slightly.
What?
He said. You lied to Sasuke and you're lying to us now. My mother really did it. She cheated on my father with his brother and conceived a child with him. Conceived Sasuke with him. Naruto shook his head.
No, the test said...
Don't lie, Naruto. I don't want you to ever lie to me. About anything. Itachi gripped Naruto's chin, forcing Naruto to look him in the eye. Sasuke is Izuna's son, isn't he? Naruto slowly gave a nod of his head. Sasuke's my half-brother, Itachi whispered, shocked. He let Naruto go and leaned back. He speculated about it, even used it to lure Sasuke to him, but he never truly believed it himself. He never believed his mother would stray from their father, because deep down they truly loved each other. Right?
Still a brother, though,
Naruto said softly. Itachi shook his head, trying to clear his jumbled thoughts. Sasuke won't see it that way. How much did my parents know? He mused to himself.
I don't know, Naruto said, but Hiyashi seems certain. And Fukaku did treat Sasuke differently than he did you. He was always more proud of you.
And mother doted on Sasuke. I always thought it was because father showed more interest in me. Because I was the oldest son and would inherit the company someday. But she would have known Sasuke was... Then she swallowed thickly. You have to tell Sasuke the truth, Deidara said. No!
No!
Itachi and Naruto said in unison.
It would destroy him.
Naruto said, just as Itachi said, he already believes that father hated him. You can't keep this a secret, Deidara said. Doesn't he deserve to know the truth?
It isn't about what he deserves and doesn't deserve, Naruto said. It's about what's best for Sasuke emotionally. This would change him. That's why I lied to him in the first place. He may act like it wouldn't bother him, but it would fester and eventually consume him. Sasuke doesn't handle anger well. He adored his mother. I don't want to harm his image of her.
Itachi nodded. We have to agree to keep this between us, Itachi said. Deidara, it's my baby brother. I don't like it. I think he should know, Deidara said, shaking his head. Please, Itachi begged. Okay, Deidara acquiesced, only because Itachi begged and Itachi never begged. But I want to go on record as saying that I really don't like it, and if he finds out, I'll throw both of you under the bus. Fair enough. Itachi nodded and turned to Naruto. Is there anything that can prove you lied?
I shredded the paper that said Izuna was his father. I also took it one step further and relabeled the DNA of Izuna and Fukaku. The fix can be easily discovered by someone competent, but it could be chalked up to a filing error, until Sasuke will look into it further. He trusts me, Naruto said sadly.
You're a good friend, Naruto. Sometimes the truth is not always the best recourse. Naruto offered a small smile, still tinged with sorrow. He lied to you about something that hurt you, Deidara said. You're lying to help him. Tit for tat.
Keeping a secret like that from him will eat at me.
Think of it as a revenge for two-timing you. I wish you'd just forget the baby Uchiha and focus on Tachi. I expect you to help me from now on. We need to make sure that she feels loved. And I think we now have to satisfy a voyeur fetish. I'm right here, Itachi complained. Deidara kissed Itachi's lips. Don't remind me unless you want to be fucked. Itachi's breath came a little heavier. Naruto's eyes widened. He got the impression Itachi was the top. Naruto's cock woke up at the new possibilities presented by this strange new relationship. Thursday, November 26th. Sasuke prepared drinks in the kitchen while Kakashi sat on the sofa. It was nice to be home. Do you like this house? I think we should get another one. A bigger one. One without wet carpet so you can adopt some of those dogs at the shelter. You let me have dogs? Of course, they're your second love. Or your first. Sasuke smiled at him. I know how much you love them. Itachi and I want to rebuild our family home. We haven't talked about who will live there. Maybe we all can. We've had 3 families living in it before. Separate wings or even 2 houses, attached or not. Unless we go nuts with the architecture, there's plenty of land. You can have a pack of dogs. Hell, you can get enough to become a breeder. Whatever you want. Sasuke was still walking on air. The full extent to which Sasuke was happy with Kakashi's proposal hadn't shown itself until about an hour afterward, when the shock had worn off and he couldn't stop smiling. 2 weeks later and he was still happy, not resuming his normal dour mood. Having his brother back probably helped. Everything in his life seemed to be looking up. This house is too modern for me, Kakashi said. Too much black and white. Your bedroom is far more comfortable. I think you should rebuild. I do want to save some of those dogs. And I'll live there with you, even with your brother and his annoying boyfriend. Sasuke came over with their drinks and sat next to him. I can't help but love you. I can't wait to be yours, and yours alone, for as long as we live. Kakashi's eyes darted over Sasuke's face. You already are. He truly loved him, but he remembered what Naruto had told him. Were you really planning to kill Itachi before you knew the truth? Sasuke froze. Who told you that? Never mind, Naruto did, didn't he? His expression darkened. I'll kill him. So it's true, Kakashi said. He sighed heavily, hoping that Naruto had been wrong. He set his glass on the coffee table. I told him that in confidence. Anyway, it's the past, it doesn't matter anymore. You seriously contemplated murder, Sasuke? I thought he took everything from me, betrayed me. Wouldn't you if you were in my position? This isn't about me, it's about you. How did you pass your psyche eval? I lied, Sasuke said. It wasn't hard to fool them. I just told them what they wanted to hear. Kakashi sighed again. This isn't normal behavior, Sasuke. Like hell it isn't. Maybe not when it comes to someone who murdered your family, but he was still your brother. A brother I know you loved. You can't understand how betrayed I felt. The extent I loved and adored Itachi was the extent I hated him for betraying me. You can't judge me. No one can judge me for that. Sasuke was right. Kakashi may be an orphan, but he didn't know what it felt like to be betrayed like that by a family member. Kakashi nodded. Sasuke's indignation at Naruto returned. I can't believe he told you. I knew I shouldn't have trusted him. Kakashi raised an eyebrow as Sasuke reached for his phone. What are you doing? Kakashi asked. What does it look like? I'm deleting Naruto's number and taking him off my speed dial. I've been meaning to change you to first anyway. I just never got around. Kakashi laid a hand over top of Sasuke's, stalling him. Don't delete his number, Kakashi said quietly. Why not? He betrayed my trust. This was revenge for cheating and dumping him. He may have betrayed your trust, but he only ever thought about your best interest, no? He's your friend, your best friend. I would never deny or interfere with that. He did everything he could for you from the start, even lied about Itachi, knowing I would kick the shit out of him if I found out. But he did it because he thought your life was in danger. I told Naruto we were engaged. He was hurt, but then he told me that he followed you to the FBI because he wanted to be there when he found Itachi, to stop you from killing him. Think about it from his perspective. He can't be by your side anymore, so he told me so I can take over for him, so I can be the one to look after you. Kakashi stroked Sasuke's cheek. That secret doesn't bind you anymore. I should know what you're capable of anyway. Why should it matter? It's not like I'm homicidal otherwise. Maybe. I love you, and that fact doesn't change how much I love you. I admire Naruto for telling me. I love you, Sasuke said. I'm changing my speed dial at least. You're my in case of emergency from now on too. It was him before. Sasuke's face slacked. Itachi'll be the second, then that dobe. Guess that bubblehead dated I will have to be after him. Neji probably won't talk to me ever again, so... Kakashi grabbed his chin. Will you shut up? Your phone doesn't matter. You kids these days. He kissed him. Sasuke dropped the offending device. Kakashi grabbed one of Sasuke's wrists and guided it to the bulge in his pants. Sasuke rubbed Kakashi's erection through his pants as Kakashi moved both of his hands to Sasuke's chest to rub his nipples through his shirt, causing the younger man to groan. Sasuke grew frustrated with only his lips and nipples getting any pleasure, so he took his hand away and rubbed his own clothed erection against Kakashi's groin. They dry-humped each other as they continued to kiss. Sasuke broke first, not able to breathe anymore. He pulled away and gulped for air. Fuck, Kakashi. Fuck me. Fuck me hard. Punish me for cheating on you. Fuck! Kakashi growled and attacked Sasuke's bare throat, kissing, licking, and biting the flawless skin. Sasuke continued to buck his hips into Kakashi's body. I love you too much to hurt you. Kakashi breathed against Sasuke's skin, making his skin pucker, even out of revenge for keeping quiet about Naruto. Just go rough on me today, Sasuke whispered. Don't worry about hurting me today. I deserve it. You do deserve it, bastard. He groped Sasuke's ass hard and leaned back, pulling his lover on top of him. Sasuke looked down on him. I trusted you, Kakashi whispered. I know, and I'm so sorry. I have so little. I can't let go of anything, even if it means hurting the one I love. He was the only one, I swear. You'll be the only one from now on, I promise. On my family's name, only you. Marriage makes it harder on the conscience, Kakashi said, but his voice and face were gentle, taking the sting from his words. Promise me 2 things and I'll forgive you. Anything. And I mean that. I know you would never ask of me anything I wouldn't willingly do for you. Don't have sex with anyone else and never contemplate murder again. I promise both as long as you live. Granted, I can't expect you to live a monk's life if I die. And if you die, if you're killed, you can't expect me not to contemplate revenge. Granted. If you were taken from me, I would think about murder. Kakashi caressed Sasuke's cheek. I should hope so. Just don't suspect Itachi or Naruto. But if I die in an explosion, it was Deidara. Kakashi chuckled. No matter what. He's the first I'll interrogate, and browbeat him as much as possible, just out of spite. He irritates the hell out of me. Me too, Sasuke smiled. We'll muzzle him when he's in the house. Kakashi groaned. I forgot what living with your brother would include. Maybe we do need 2 houses. You know, you started this makeout session, and now you're delaying it. Kakashi pressed Sasuke's hips down so he was sitting on his lap rather than straddling him. He pulled Sasuke's head down to his shoulder and put his arms around him. I don't just want to get off with you. I just like being able to hold you and be with you. Sasuke tilted his head against Kakashi's. Yeah, he put his arms around Kakashi's neck. If it wasn't for this bloody erection, I would do this forever. Kakashi hummed with amusement. You made up drinks. Let's drink our drinks and we can take care of that thing. Sasuke leaned back and grabbed Kakashi's drink, handed it to him, leaned back to grab his, and he stayed on Kakashi's lap and took more than a sip of his sake. Kakashi smiled and did the same. You're more limber when you're drunk, Kakashi said. Sasuke poured the rest of his glass down his throat. He winced and took Kakashi's glass and poured it down his throat as well. I'll give it about 5 minutes and I'll be drunker than a shoujo. Kakashi had no idea what that meant. Is a drunk monkey thing? I'd say since you haven't had lunch and most of your blood is not in your brain, you're pretty much there. Sasuke leaned his forehead on Kakashi's, his eyes closed, his hands resting on Kakashi's neck. They stayed like that for a minute. I'm feeling extra limber now, Sasuke whispered. Kakashi surprised Sasuke by picking him up as he stood. Sasuke wrapped his arms around his neck and his legs around his waist. Kakashi led him out on Sasuke's bed and straightened up to take off his black t-shirt. Sasuke raised a hand to take his clothes off, but Kakashi motioned to stall him. As he stripped, Kakashi stared at Sasuke. Sasuke wore a white button-down with nothing under it and a black dress pants. Sasuke was sexy in anything and nothing. Kakashi wondered if he owned any other kind of pants. Then he remembered 2 pairs of jeans in his dresser covering the guns there. Once stripped, Kakashi got on the bed and unbuttoned and unzipped those black pants and pulled them down. They were tied on his hips, so without a gun to carry, he didn't need a belt. He peeled them off Sasuke's legs. No underwear today. Kakashi smiled. He didn't go commando very often. He unbuttoned Sasuke's shirt and uncovered his chest and stomach. Sasuke's breathing became labored. Kakashi licked Sasuke's throat and moved down his chest and stomach, tasting him. Next was Sasuke's hip as he lifted his left leg and licked at the junction of his groin and thigh, then up the inside of his thigh, the side of his knee, and back down to his hard cock. Sasuke showed how drunk he was by his legs going completely limp at an extreme angle that freaked Kakashi out the first time he saw it. Sasuke's body was so pliable like this. He wondered if Sasuke could put his ankles behind his head. Another day. Kakashi opened his mouth wide and took his entire cock, and closed his lips around him and pulled his tight lips down his length. Sasuke sighed and groaned. Kakashi was overwhelmed with the need to own him. Kakashi took him in again and just sucked hard. He swirled his tongue around the head and then sucked again. It wasn't about pleasure right now. His or Sasuke's. He just needed him. To taste him and feel him. They hadn't had sex since he came back. He had lost him. Came so close to losing him forever to those hitmen. To a man he failed to catch months ago. It didn't hurt that Sasuke had slept with Naruto while they were together, but he wasn't angry anymore. He understood. He understood Sasuke better than Sasuke probably knew. He understood the fear of loss Sasuke was struggling with. The fear of loss had scarred them both. Sasuke had used Naruto to cope while Kakashi had shut everyone out. Sasuke couldn't let go of anything, and Kakashi had always feared having anything he could lose. And the one time he had something worth protecting, he was snatched away and nearly killed. They were 2 orphans who desperately needed each other. He was glad Sasuke had Naruto and his brother. Kakashi just had this one dark-eyed young man. He would ensure that Sasuke would never fear being abandoned again. He had no doubt Sasuke loved him, and between his proposal and today, they hadn't talked about Sasuke's infidelity. They didn't need to. That only reaffirmed how much they were in love. How they were meant for each other. His sad thoughts killed his erection, but he sucked Sasuke off to a sighing orgasm. He savored his flavor and came up to look at Sasuke's relaxed face. Sasuke opened his eyes and put his hand on Kakashi's hip, and then his cock, surprised to find him soft. "You're all I have," Kakashi said. "I love you. I'm so relieved to have you back." He laid on his side next to Sasuke and caressed his stomach. "I'll fuck you silly later." "I'll never hurt you again." "It's just as well you don't want to continue. I'm about to pass out." "I'll nurse your hangover. Go ahead and sleep." "I really am sorry." "I know. Trust me, I understand why you did it. I wouldn't ask you to marry me if I didn't." "Just be there when I wake up." "I will be." Sasuke turned to face Kakashi and tucked his head under Kakashi's chin and draped an arm over Kakashi's waist. Sasuke drifted off. It wasn't even sunset yet. Wednesday, December 2nd. Haku looked through the peephole and hesitated before he opened the door. "So, they found you." "More like I turned up," Sasuke said. "That's a part of the reason I'm here. I want to apologize for them taking you in for questioning. The other reason I'm here is to apologize for Zabuza. I didn't push for a long sentence. I actually argued for a lighter sentence because I saw the love and affection between you, and it made me reassess my own relationship. I owe you both, so I'm sorry for arresting him and what it did to you." Sasuke shifted uncomfortably. "I also wanted to give you this." Sasuke handed Haku a manila folder. "It's a recommendation letter. I want to offer you the opportunity for a better job and life while Zabuza is in prison. I co-own Sharingan, and that letter will get you a foot in the door there. Please accept it. It's not charity, it's penance. And tell Zabuza I will speak for him at his parole hearing as long as he's a good boy. Being on his best behavior is the best way to show his love for you right now. The better behaved he is, the shorter his sentence will be." "I'll accept this on 2 conditions. You give Zabuza the same opportunity when he gets out. Then I'd suggest he take some business classes while the state's paying for it. And you allow me to bitch slap you right now?" Sasuke nodded and shut his eyes, bracing for the slap. Haku slapped him hard, causing Sasuke to lose his balance, but he caught himself with a hand on the wall. "I'll put together a resume," Haku said with a smile. "Thank you. Sorry again." "Apology accepted." Friday, December 4th. All Sasuke's colleagues who helped him in trying to find him and arresting Hiyashi wanted to attend Fukaku's interment at the Uchiha family mausoleum. Sasuke turned them all down, being unusually frank that he didn't want any of them to see him cry. Mausoleum wasn't quite descriptive enough. It was a segregated area hemmed in by natural stone pillars in a shaded corner of the cemetery. Those stone pillars were covered in verdant moss. The inside held smooth tombstones that sat on top where the ashes were interred. There were places to hold flowers and incense in front of the obelisk-like stones with names written vertically in Japanese and adorned with the Uchiha fan crest. Kakashi, Deidara, and Naruto all went with Sasuke and Itachi to the cemetery, but they stayed back next to the cars. The brothers and a Buddhist priest entered the private graveyard alone. Neither surviving Uchiha were overly religious, but they were raised to respect Buddhism and Shinto religions. It was a little more than superstition to them, but they weren't about to have a karma bite them on the ass. They invited the priest specifically to say sutras to appease their father's spirit, due to the length of time since he died and their harsh thoughts toward him during that time. Sasuke's eyes were extremely red and swollen when the brothers returned to their lovers, but he was otherwise stone-faced. Naruto and Kakashi saw even more grief in him than his red eyes suggested. Naruto was really tempted to go to him and embrace him, but he remembered himself and only leaned forward. Kakashi stepped up and pulled Sasuke into a supportive hug. Sasuke started crying again. Itachi was looking far worse for wear than his younger brother. His face was flushed, his eyes red and bright with gleaming tears. Deidara just grabbed Itachi's arm to offer support. Itachi's eyes were unfocused, but when they did focus, he was looking at his brother. Naruto felt like he shouldn't even be there. He was afraid to approach Sasuke, especially in front of Kakashi, and Itachi didn't look like he wanted him or Deidara to touch him. It was awkward. Sasuke leaned back away from Kakashi, and Kakashi let him go. Naruto lowered his eyes since Sasuke made a big deal about Naruto seeing him cry when they were teens. So he was surprised when Sasuke grabbed him and cried into his shoulder. Sasuke had never embraced him so hard before. one hand grabbing Andy's back and his other around Naruto's head. He wasn't romantic in the slightest. Sasuke was sobbing and nearing collapse against him. It wasn't just grief. It was relief too. His family's murderers had been arrested, his father's body found, his brother back in his life, and the stress of having two lovers was over. Sasuke was relieved. Naruto had been with him at the beginning of all this, and he was here for the end. "Thank you," Sasuke whispered in a broken voice, "for everything."
You're welcome.
A few weeks ago he would have added that he loved him, and that was why he did everything for him. Sasuke didn't say it either. Once free of Naruto's arms, Sasuke rubbed his face. First, water. Then food. Then copious amounts of alcohol. They all snorted in amusement. Itachi hugged him this time. "I have water in the car," Kakashi said. "I think a Mexican restaurant would tolerate the 5 of us getting drunk." "Yeah," Sasuke said, "that sounds good. But no tequila. I know enough about all 5 of us to know that's a bad idea." Thursday, December 10th. Luckily, Sasuke puked up most of the whiskey, beer, and other liquors he drank that day, else he might have been hospitalized for alcohol poisoning. The result was he ended up eating far more enchiladas, tamales, and tacos that were healthy for any human being beside Naruto. Of course, it didn't stay in his stomach. Itachi was happy to pay and tip generously due to the 2 loud blondes and his gluttonous little brother. He and Kakashi didn't get nearly as drunk as the others. It was good they had 3 days to recover. Kakashi and Sasuke arrived at the courthouse 10 minutes before their appointment. Kakashi in a black suit that accentuated his height and thin frame, and Sasuke in a black formal kimono. Waiting inside was an old man also wearing a kimono. Kakashi went up to him and bowed. The old man pulled him into a hug. "I'm very happy for you, Kakashi-kun." "Thank you. Thank you for coming. Anything for my favorite student. I'm honored you invited me. You are the closest thing I have to family. The best to be my witness." Kakashi turned so he could introduce Sasuke. "This is Uchiha Sasuke," Kakashi said in the Japanese fashion. "And this is my Shisho, Sanro Mifune." Sasuke and Mifune bowed to each other. "It's nice to finally meet my student's student. I hope you will start coming with Kakashi-kun to lessons now. Now I know who to blame for the bruises. I would like to start training under you as well. I'll look forward to it." Itachi arrived with 2 blondes in tow. "Oh God," Sasuke sighed. Kakashi raised a disapproving eyebrow at the long-haired blonde. "I only ask for you," Sasuke whispered to his brother as Itachi hugged him. "We only need 1 witness each." "We're all family. I thought we should all be here."
Honestly, Naruto said, I didn't think I should come, but I wanted to be, and Itachi dragged me along.
"I want to see baby Uchiha get married," Deidara cooed. Kakashi checked his watch. "Come on, it's almost time." They went through security and waited for the judge. They were summoned to his office, and they were surprised to see it was old man Sarutobi.
"I had to be the one to preside over my old rookie's marriage. I also wanted to apologize to both of you,"
said to Sasuke and Itachi.
"I'm sorry we were looking in the wrong direction. Our mistakes led to many hard years for you both."
"It was a hard case, I don't blame you," Sasuke said. "I got it wrong too," Itachi said. "Not your fault."
"I'm glad it's all been resolved."
Sarutobi straightened up, and everyone else did the same.
"We're gathered here together in the presence of these witnesses to join Kakashi Hatake and Sasuke Uchiha in the honorable estate of matrimony, which is not to be entered into unadvisedly or lightly, but reverently and discreetly. If anyone can show cause why these men should not be lawfully joined, let them speak now, or hereafter remain silent."
He paused, but no one said anything.
"Kakashi Hatake, Sasuke Uchiha, I charge you both that if either of you know any reason why you may not lawfully be joined together in matrimony, you do now confess."
Neither man said anything.
"Do you have your own vows?"
"We do," Kakashi said. Sarutobi gestured for them to proceed. Kakashi turned to Sasuke and took his hand in both of his. Sasuke put his other hand over Kakashi's. Kakashi looked down for a moment and then looked Sasuke in the eye. "I never would have called myself an unhappy man, but you have made me happy for the first time in years. Perhaps in my life. You've also managed to piss me off more than ever in my life, and caused me quite a bit of misery. That in just the last 2 months. The fact you have that power over me means that you have so penetrated my heart that I can never live without you again. We're both orphans, and we both have our issues, and I believe that helping you through them is not my burden but my privilege. I will be your strength, as you will be mine. I will love only you as long as I live. Sasuke was a little surprised by his words, but then was greatly touched. He swallowed his tears. I've often been accused of being a heartless bastard, and I think that was true until I fell in love with you. I promise to love you and care for you for the rest of my life, and I will try in every way to be worthy of your love and your forgiveness. I will never disappoint you again, and I will promise again, in the presence of these witnesses, that I will not have sex with anyone but you, and not contemplate murder again as long as you live. And I won't take your card to shootouts out of spite. Kakashi smiled. Naruto and Itachi both shifted uncomfortably when Sasuke mentioned contemplating murder. Sarutobi didn't have all the facts, but the way the two grooms reacted to each other's vows said there was a strange history between them, and he smiled. The last bit about damaged cars at shootouts particularly amused the former FBI chief.
Now, by the authority vested in me by the state of Fire and the city of Konoha, I pronounce you to be husband and,
Sarutobi smirked,
husband, and extend you my very best wishes for a successful and happily married life together for the rest of your lives. Gentlemen, may I present the newly wedded couple?
Kakashi pulled Sasuke into a passionate kiss. Deidara cheered and clapped. After the kiss, they continued to ignore Deidara and looked into each other's smiling eyes for a long moment. Kakashi turned to Sarutobi. If your schedule allows it, would you join us for celebration?
No, I have to get back to a trial. Congratulations.
He shook both men's hands. Thank you, sir. Thursday, March 17th, 2016. It was 4 months later that the trial of Hiyashi Hyuga ended with his conviction of the murder of Fukaku and Mikoto Uchiha. Kakuzu was convicted of the other 4 murders. Hidan was convicted on unrelated charges since there was no evidence he took part in the Uchiha killings. Itachi was immensely relieved. Sasuke, on the other hand, didn't react. The trial had been clear-cut that Hiyashi was guilty, and Sasuke didn't have a doubt that would be the verdict. Sasuke went over to talk to Neji, show his support and assure him that he didn't hold anything against him for what his uncle did. Naruto didn't want to go near Neji and stayed with Deidara and Itachi. So are we celebrating after this? Deidara asked. No, Itachi said. Sasuke said he does want to visit a shrine. He's not religious, but he asked me to go with him.
Are you religious?
Naruto asked. Not really. I haven't seen much evidence of the divines in my life, but rituals keep us tied to our family and culture.
Sasuke has 2 shrines in his house. I think he prays every night.
I haven't seen his house yet.
You're not missing much. Pretty sterile.
Hopefully, Kakashi will help bring him more life into his home.
You don't know Kakashi-sensei, do you?
Well, it's my brother's fault for missing out on bringing someone like you into his life to brighten it up. Naruto blushed. We haven't sorted out our long-term living arrangements, Itachi said. Deidara's apartment isn't big enough, and the cottage is a little out of the way. Even if Sasuke has the room, he's just married. Jeez, Itachi, Deidara sighed. Just ask him if he wants to live together. Naruto realized that Sasuke was glaring at them. Live together? Sasuke said. If you weren't right about stopping my stupid affair, I'd think you were just trying to steal my boyfriend. He glared at Deidara. You okay with this? I'm more involved than the rest of you. More perverted, you mean? But Sasuke was smiling. As long as you're happy. Want to ride with us, Itachi? We won't be long, will we? Deidara can drive me so you don't have to take me home afterward. I just want to pray. I thought you weren't religious. Sasuke just glared at him. Itachi put a hand on Deidara's arm. This wasn't the time to prod him. You can stay in the car, Sasuke said. Meet us there. They headed for the parking lot. Sasuke and Kakashi headed for their car, while the other 3 headed towards theirs, a little further away. Don't tease him about our culture, Itachi said. Our religion and culture ties to us to our family, and that's important to us. I'll apologize. They pulled up to the shrine where Sasuke and Kakashi waited. Itachi was the only one to join them. Sasuke led his husband and brother onto the grounds, bowing at the torii gate on their way. Kakashi easily mimicked the brothers going through the purification rituals. Sasuke had primed Kakashi on dropping an offering into the offertory box. There was a large cherry tree on the grounds in full bloom. The branches drooped with their loads of blossoms, making them look like fountains of petals caught in a moment of time. They blossom for only a short time, but are considered the height of natural beauty, Sasuke said. They represent our lives. They are short, so we should live in the moment and appreciate the beauty around us, and cherish the people in our lives because life is ephemeral. They approached the shrine proper. Kakashi stood next to Sasuke and mimicked the way the brothers bowed deeply twice, clapped twice, and then stood with their hands together and head down. Sasuke started to say something in Japanese in a low but clear voice. Kakashi assumed it was a prayer. It was delivered slowly, with reverence, his voice resonant and calming. Itachi sniffed, causing Kakashi to look over at him. Itachi was silently weeping. Sasuke's voice wavered as he spoke, but soldiered on. Not understanding Sasuke's words, Kakashi offered his own prayer that they would be happy and happily married for the rest of their lives. When he finished, Sasuke bowed and the others did the same. The brothers were suppressing tears as they walked away. Sasuke explained, I gave marriage vows to the kami and my family. I also prayed to and for our family. I told them we brought the killers to justice and I asked for forgiveness for the dishonor I brought on them. I also asked them to forgive me that you and Itachi are my family now. I can't carry the weight of their deaths every day. Not anymore. Kakashi embraced Sasuke and he melted into his arms. Since none of us have been struck by lightning, I guess they accepted it, Sasuke said. When Kakashi let his brother go, Itachi pulled Sasuke close to kiss his hair. Let's go home. End of chapter 12 and end of Scars. Thank you for listening. This has been, well, for the writers it has clearly been work of passion. Long progress, so has been mine. And I'm honored that I was allowed to do this. This is my personal favorite and my wife's personal favorite. We have read and listened to this several times. Thank you so much for listening to all of you, and once more, big thank you to MisatosPenpen and PhoenixInnocence. You have no idea how much this means. This is one of the best written fics there. This would definitely work as a series. I've tried to bring it justice, and I hope I have. And pardon all the mistakes there might still be and stuff like that. I've just worked with what I've got, which isn't always much. But thank you.